Money I made along the way made that happen. Most people, when they saw it was going to cost more and they didn't have the money, would have backed away. But money I made along the way made that happen. And the deal was still a win. I was able to take the equity, pay off all my losses. Did I short sale my home or modify it when the market dropped? No, because they said I had to miss a mortgage payment. My credit's too important. And I paid interest-only arm loan, embarrassingly enough, because I could have handled it a lot sooner, probably 9 years, and didn't pay down any equity.
Welcome to the Get Traction podcast. If you are ready to learn exactly what it takes to become a real estate entrepreneur, this is the show for you. With your host, founder of Traction Real Estate Mentors and president of the Traction Real Estate Investors Association, Tom Zeeb.
Michael Fitzgerald, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm doing great. Grateful. I feel blessed where I'm at, and I'm grateful we got to meet at AREA 17 years ago now.
Yeah, it has been a long time, hasn't it, Mikey? So here, let me explain a few things by way of I'll do a light introduction, and then you can tell everyone more about yourself. But I should probably explain why I call you Mikey instead of Mike or Michael. That's because I've known you forever, like you said, 17 plus years now. You started with me when you were very young. You're still very young, but you started with me when you were very, very young. And I knew you as Mikey, got to know you as Mikey, because you always had that youthful exuberance that was fantastic and has done you really good in business. And you were also one of my very first students. I don't think you were the first, but I think you've been the most prolific over the years, which I know you're very happy to hear that, right?
Thank you. I was there before you had a study course. I was in the first two. It was me and the famous apartment expert, Michael Blanc.
Oh, there we go. Fantastic. So, Mikey, let's think, before we talk about all the major projects you're doing today, let's turn the clock back that 17 plus years. What were things like where were you at? Why were you looking to get into real estate?
I started real estate in a one-bedroom apartment. I had done a 3-year service in the military. Then I went to a job I was supposed to have a 2-year degree for. And I did a small importing deal over the internet I learned about in the Wall Street Journal. I called a rent-to-own ad in the newspaper one day. I was driving down Old 40 in Hagerstown, and the fellow on the other line, a fellow by a name, we'll call him Dave M., said that I sounded like a much better real estate investor than running to own his home, and said that I should go to the real estate clubs in D.C., Baltimore, and I could buy houses no money down. Now, I was a little bit skeptical, but because I was voted most gullible in high school, I said, well, this has to work. I started going to the real estate association.
I can imagine.
Met you at the beginning of your mentoring program, and definitely gave me a lot of belief. I think we did a deal in a couple months, and it's been a journey that is close to 50% of my life.
Fantastic.
Funny how my whole lifespan.
Your whole lifespan, yeah. Well, not your lifespan, your current life.
Anyway, current life. So
you're going to live a long time, Mikey.
I'm 37 years old, and in March of this coming year, I hit 18 years in real estate.
That's right. All right. So I did. I met you when you were 20, and you were fresh out of the Army. You were airborne, correct?
Correct.
Awesome. And had spent a lot of time jumping out of airplanes.
It was, I was scared of heights, so I said the best way to get over is to jump out of airplanes. I did it every time, 15, 17 times. My knees felt like they were going to give out every time, but I did it.
You did it anyway. Did you feel the same way in real estate? Were you afraid of doing real estate deals?
I tend to have a lot of belief, and I think that's what everything is. If you believe you can do it and you see yourself there, a lot of stuff happens in life. So I definitely was, 2 weeks before my first house settled, I left my job with no money. I remember quite vividly at the time, you didn't understand why I did that. And I didn't understand why, every piece of real estate doesn't settle. We were able to get it done. And it was a good day. Plus, there was an agreement you did, which has become pretty popular nowadays in some other terms, called a division of proceeds. So it was a good no money down first deal. Did a second one, I think, pretty shortly after. And then I don't know if you're aware of this. I might have told you, I may not have. In 2005, after those deals, a farmer called me up, wanted $1 million for his farm. I negotiated a no money down deal where I could sell any or all towards the purchase price. And in my one-bedroom apartment, did a multi-million-dollar deal.
Nice. Still don't own your own house, living in a one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, a lot of lessons learned. The market drop changed a lot of the equity positions, but I'd say the biggest thing I've learned in real estate is sticking with it. I've had situations that have taken other people under, but I've paid my payments as agreed. I've done what I'm supposed to do, and I've always overcame. And I think a lot of that is going in every day, knowing you can do it, believing you can do it, and moving forward and doing it.
Well, but Mikey, yes, totally agree. Where does that come from, though? That's what I think a lot of people that aren't at that place right now and maybe don't feel like they naturally have that quality about themselves and that ability, but they want to have it because they know it's going to work out well for them. So what is there something you can do? Do you buy that somewhere? Do you pull it off a shelf? Do you find it within yourself? How is it that you become that way?
With me, I grew up without much. My dad's super hard worker, always worked 3+ jobs, best craftsman I know, but he was never able to really get ahead where he deserved to be in life. So I was always motivated and grew up, wanting to, I grew up very goal oriented, saving money and wanting to do great things. I think I get my work ethic from my dad, and I think I probably get my ability to dream from my dad. My mother says a lot of prayers, and I've just always been a hard driven, motivated guy.
Okay. So it's kind of finding it within. You didn't grow up in real estate. You didn't grow up in great wealth.
I didn't grow up.
You found it.
I don't want to take anything away from my parents, but I went to different elementary schools when I was younger. We got a lot of presents and clothes from different organizations around holiday time. My dad always worked really hard. And, like I said, best craftsman I know. But definitely, I don't come for money. I'm 100% self-made, and I do a lot for my family.
Love it, because I imagine that's part of the. Is that part of your reason, Mikey? Is that part of the reason you got into it?
Oh yeah, I always want to help. Always want to be able to do for and help my family out. I want to be able to do for the community, and I never really was college bound. I never knew I just knew I wanted to make money and do something business oriented, and ended up being real estate. And I've done quite a bit of it. Most likely a couple thousand transactions, definitely over 100 million in real estate. And I had a dream when I was in that 1-bedroom apartment from hopefully owning 9 rental units one day, because I remember this guy in town, we'll call him Ronnie M, in this small town, Shervisburg, I really stayed in after like 4th or 5th grade from moving around. And he had 9 rental units. I'm like, well, that must be the thing. Well, not to disappoint you, you may not make much money on 9 rental units. You will create wealth. They'll pay themselves down. And I think long-term wealth is the number one thing you should look for as you're growing in real estate after you start making money. It's certainly been good to me. But at the same time, I was like, wow, if I could own 9 rental units one day, from that 1-bedroom apartment, I wasn't able to work with banks, I believe, other than one stated income loan for 3 years. But what I was able to do is in those first 3 years, 20+ real estate deals. And, it comes with time. So I've been working with banks now from 2007. And I've been able to put together 400+ rental units, 3 premier Class A office buildings, a parking garage, and various other things.
You've gone a fair bit beyond your original modest goal. I'll put that in quotes. Your modest, quote unquote, modest goal of 9 units is now a much, much greater, much better portfolio.
Yes.
What would you, so when people are starting off, it's, oh, wow, that Mikey must be special. It must be this guy. Well, I can't be like that. 9 would be amazing, but I can't imagine owning so much. What does it take to get moving, Mike?
There's no difference between me and anybody else in this world except, you got to go get it. You got to take action. If you take action and you take more action, that's massive action, things are going to happen. If you take action, nothing happens. So you don't take any more action, it's not going to happen. It's up to you. And, anybody can do anything that they set their mind to. Set your mind to it. Don't give up. And you're going to be surprised where life takes you. And you got to have the ability to believe in it. I tell my son all the time, not to grow up too quick. I think adults a lot of times lose the ability to believe and dream. But if you're able to dream it and believe it, it's going to come to fruition as long as you do it.
And Mikey, don't you ever have any, look, I totally agree. And I think that's great advice from father to son as well. But let me play devil's advocate, because I know a lot of people go, oh, I've heard that crap before. I've heard that. Yeah, just think positive and be good, but it doesn't work. So didn't you ever have any doubts?
Definitely. Before I got my first deal, it had been maybe 2.5, 3 months. I got my first deal in about 3 months. And, when it took 3 months to get my first deal, of course I had doubts. Once I got my first deal, in between the second deal, I had some doubts, but I always believed I could do it, and I never stopped moving forward.
Because I worked with you on those first couple of deals. Was there anything, I know you leaned on me for a lot. You also were an extreme self-starter. I think that's a super important point, because I could give you a little push and you would start running. And that's fantastic, because a lot of people, you start to give a little push and nothing happens, and you push a little more. And it's almost like they're pushing back.
I made sure I did something. I made sure I did something every day that was oriented towards the goal. There's an old saying. Actually, it's script as old as 30,000 years old. You got to keep your head pointed upwards and always towards the goal.
But don't you ever get down? Didn't you ever doubt it? And what specifically did you do? I still get down.
I still get down sometimes, but I keep moving forward. I never stop. I never stop believing, even if I'm down.
Is there, Mikey, what I'm asking is there a trick to that? Is there something you do, or a song something? Or
tell yourself you can do it. Look yourself in the mirror, say, I can do this. Move forward. Think about, what are you actually doing? A lot of people just think about what they're going to do, but they don't actually do it. Write 50 things down, put them in order, and put times beside them. Time yourself and do it. You'll find when you actually do it, it's amazing. It happens. It took me, my first year, it was hard to find 2 or 3 deals. My second year, it was hard to find 6 or 7. My third year, 13 to 15. But after a while, there was a point where we were doing 50 to 70 renovations a year, and it became so easy to find a deal. And what I'm trying to say by this is everything gets easier over time. The longer you do something, the more you adapt, and the more easy it becomes, and the more, I don't want to be cliche, but it's attracted to your life.
Gotcha. I often tell my students, and I think I told you this years ago too, as long as what you're complaining about is progressing, that's a sign of progress. So, like you say, you're complaining you can't find a deal. Then you're complaining you can't get 3 deals. Then you're complaining you can't get 5 deals in a year. But then you're complaining you can't do that in a month. Next thing you know, it's an operational issue, because you've had me in the past too to look at your operation and get it in shape. You can grow faster than your operation grows, and then you have problems trying to get your operation.
Yeah, right. That's still a legitimate issue. Definitely
you grow fast still.
In the first couple of years when I first got in office. Now, we're looking at, top COO talent, and, really we're looking at hiring someone just to lease commercial space. So you'll find that anything in life, one thing becomes another, and the ultimate goal is quality of life. Yeah. How much time can you spend? What are you best at? Because everybody, is going to excel what they're best at, even myself. So, we're kind of in the process of growing out again. But this time we're doing it with Sharper. It's a natural EOS model company. Mm-hmm. And they help businesses kind of structure. And also I've been able to make friends with a lot of, top level people in the space. So we're, so I can say, structure was and operations were definitely hurdles throughout the years. But as you grow, you get smarter, and you tend to focus, you tend to chase less shiny objects, keep your head more on the goal. Real estate, you can take it wherever you want. It's up to you. Yeah. You can do 1 or 2, 3 houses a year, make $100,000 and live a great life. You can do, 20 wholesales a year, 2 or 3 buy and sells, not have a lot of staff, maybe have some virtual staff and live a great life where you save money. Or you can do it to where, one day you're probably headed to $1 billion. And, gotcha. Right now, my biggest goal is to spend the most time with my son as possible. I'm a single dad. I have him every other week. So in those weeks, I'd like to work, just 3 days a week, part-time. But that's pushed me to really get organizational and grow out the business that gives me freedom. So, where will I end up? I can tell you this, and this is going to surprise even Tom. I just took down a deal with 2 expert real estate investors in Ohio that were having problems on how to present the deal, tied it up for 10 months. I came in, took down 217 individual properties, 156 single family homes, 433 units, for less than 20 million. The deal's worth north of 35 million. I got 28% of a deal. We're selling a lot of it off. Hopefully this podcast goes out after that closes in 3 or 4 weeks. The seller, I think, already had a backup offer 10 million higher.
I'll make sure it doesn't.
We literally, and I took it down. These guys brought it to me and they're going to operate it. If you were to wholesale each of these properties, every single one of them would be a grand slam wholesale.
Okay.
We got these for an average of $34,000 a unit. The average single family is worth over, $37,000. The average single family is worth over $125,000. And every single one of these, we could wholesale the whole portfolio and make $8 million. So it's you never know where life's going to take you, but I've been able to do some cool things. I'm really grateful for. I'm also working on what I consider to be a catalyst project. That's going to be a state, county, city, federal partnership.
I want to talk about your development work. So when I introduced you, we didn't say where you were. You're in Hagerstown, Maryland, correct?
I'm in the Grand Piano Building in Hagerstown, Maryland. It was actually the first office building to be filled in less than 6 months and not take years to fill. It was a city and partnership project with me. You know, nobody thought I could fill it in 3 or 4 months. I did, all out of town tenants. And actually the governor gave me an award for that in 2015.
The governor of Maryland gave you an award for a building that you redid in a town where, some people are used to urban renewal now, and it probably needs to happen again in many places, but that wasn't the case when you did this building. You were kind of the first one in.
I was the first. There was a local billionaire, but had some space, but it had taken years to fill up. I was the first one that filled it up the way I did. And I got a citation with the state of Maryland and the governor thanking me for being a catalyst to the town. Actually, I got 2 of those. I got another one for my high ability and integrity after the professional arts building, which was a city, state, federal partnership that started in 2017 that I performed on as well. Now I'm working on my biggest one, which is the first high-end residential in city center of Hagerstown, a DC-style project, 46 high-end residential units in Hagerstown. I got to tell you, it wouldn't have been possible without the city's participation, the county, which we're working on, the state, and Department of Commerce and the federal government are really bringing this to the community. I'm just I'm a facilitator, but it wouldn't have been possible without that.
Yeah, you're a little more than a facilitator on that. Mikey, so that's the thing. But one, if it doesn't show, I'm enormously proud of you and everything that you've done, all the success you've had, how you took, honestly, some simple training on a couple of deals at the beginning and have just exploded with it over time. The governor recognizing you and the town recognizing you and the county council, everyone giving you money and rebuilding a town is incredible. Well, I don't want some people to go, it must have, he was starstruck from the beginning and it was going to happen, because a lot of times people come to me and they want to know, Tom, will I be successful? My answer to that is yes, you can be. Whether or not you will be is going to come down to how much you actually do. So when you walked in my door, when Dave had referred you to me for coaching years ago, would I have known that you would become what you've become today? No, not specifically, not necessarily.
I wouldn't have known that. I would have never.
Would I have given you better than 50-50 chances? Mikey, you're Mikey, right? You have an enormous amount of energy. I think it's probably fairly obvious, a little bit of ADD. I don't mean that in a bad way. I got it too. I know many of my listeners do. You control for all that and you focus your energy, you focus your enthusiasm on getting real estate deals done because something triggered in you that you just had to make this happen. And you're unrelentless in your pursuit of getting deals done. I think that's the key. So when someone comes to me and says, Tom, am I going to be successful? Are you unrelentless? Are you as unrelentless as Mikey? I think that's one of the keys to success. Do you agree?
I not only agree, I never asked for any of my newspaper articles. I mean, if you Google my name, Hagerstown, you'll see on the first 3 pages of newspaper articles. I never asked for any of them. I never approached the paper. I never asked for congressional and Senate recognition. But if you would have told me I would have got this when I first started, it would have only been a far out dream. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to take care of my family. But, just believing in it, not really going for it, but doing it every day made it possible. But I went from nobody knowing who I was to getting sworn into the city 4 years ago and making code changes.
Yeah.
So
amazing, right?
It's been a good journey, but from one year to the next, I would have never thought I would have had 2 people in the office. I never thought I would have had 10 people in the office. Every year, a year ago, somebody could have said, Mike, I want you to go out and pick up 217 Grand Slam wholesale deals at the same time. I would have said impossible.
Impossible.
So what I'm trying to say is you never know where life's going to take you, but unless you actually do stuff, make progress, write down what you're doing and move forward, you're never going to know. Everybody out there is capable, and they're capable when they make themselves capable. They're not capable by talking about it. They're not capable about, doing some advertising and not picking up calls. They're capable about saying, here's what I'm going to do, and doing it, and whether it works or not, moving forward with it. I'm just a poor boy from a poor family, a good family. I barely passed high school, 2 I think 4 or 5 GPA, but it's a
never underestimate the C student. It's the C student that changes the world.
It's been a surprising journey. Mm-hmm. But if you ask me today what I'm going to go to tomorrow, I'd say the same thing. I'm going to work my hardest, do my best, keep up with relationships, contacts. I've been able to meet through this some very cool people around the world and travel around the world. And, I'll send you some personal pictures, Tom, but I didn't do it because I'm special. I didn't do it because it was given to me. It happened because I took initiative. I put some bandit signs out there. I talked to my first seller. I met the guy. I looked 10 years old at the time. I was in a tie, always saying I needed to get back to my senior associate.
You only barely look 20 now. And so, yeah, you did look 10 when I mentioned it. That's why I call you Mikey.
That's what Tom told me to do. And I'm saying when you get in something like this, you really need a mentor. And it's worth every penny of the money. And you need that so you can be pointed in the right direction and get that little extra push. Because guess what? If you do it and you stick with it, you're going to make money, and it's going to be a drop in the bucket compared to what you can do with intentional focus. Even if that focus happens to be a little bit ADHD, across the board, you're going to get a lot done.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. Again, we're not picking on it. We're pointing it out that it's a good thing. Mikey, again, I feel like I've got to put another point on that. Everything you just said, 100% true. What's interesting is I would claim probably 100% people have heard that before. It's not like that's the first time they've heard, work hard, stay focused, go after your goals, be unrelenting. That's not new. I think a lot of times people think, I have to learn something different. I have to learn something new. I have to learn what's working now. There's something behind door number 3. I gotta have the bright, shiny object, where everything you said is classic success strategy. It's all it took. The basics and the fundamentals is what have made you successful. Not anything random, or not something you had to pay an enormous amount of money for, not something that is a hidden secret, or you had to climb to the top of some mountain in Asia. It's the fundamentals. Stick to them. Everybody knows them, but nobody sticks to them. You did, and you've become massively successful.
And I got a challenge to everybody that's heard that before, maybe even paid a mentor before. What did you actually do? What action steps, other than showing up for a course or talking to a mentor, did you actually take? And out of those action steps, how many of them were consistent? 6 years ago or 7 years ago, I joined the Collective Genius Mastermind. It's like the number one mastermind in the space. A lot of guys do a couple hundred deals a year. They're top mentors or whatnot. And I've been a member for 6 or 7 years. I pay $20,000 a year to be a member. Why would I do that? Because one thing I learned, one thing can pay for everything. I just got this deal out of that room from two really top tier guys that did 80 to 100 turnkey homes a year that didn't know how to present this deal. It wouldn't have happened without me. That's clear. But I got it from being part of that room. When you have a mentor, it's kind of the same thing. You're going to meet other people that are mentored by the person. Things grow, relationships grow. But unless you embark on that path, unless you take the action, it's not going to happen. And even if you embark on that path, but you don't take the action, you don't do what you need to do, it's still not going to happen. It's really up to you and, to do what needs to be done as an individual. And I definitely think if you're really serious about doing real estate and you really want to get to that next level, I would get a mentor and I would take action. I would not only do what was asked of me to do, I would do more than it's asked. Because you may be tired, you may be working a job, and you may be doing this in the evenings. But where do you want to be in the future? Where do you want to end up in life? How important is it to you really? Because if it's not important to you, to advance your life. If you're not willing to take the action, then don't get a mentor. But if you want to take the action and you really dream and you really want to do it, take the action, and you'll be rewarded. In my personal experience.
Double down, triple down on the fundamentals and make them happen.
That's absolutely right. When I was in a one-bedroom apartment, I never imagined myself even living where I'm at today. And, I had somebody visit me. It's just where I've been able to get, and I don't want to, I'm very, very humble. I have some pride because of where I've come from and, how I grew up moving from house to house when I was younger. And, I've been able to buy one of the most premier houses in town that belonged to a businessman with 6,000 employees because I stuck with real estate. I remember thinking after my second deal, I think I had a break of like 4 months, and I got 3 or 4 deals over 4 months. You're always going to have that hinge of doubt. Don't be a director of negative, be a director of positive and move forward.
Yeah. Mikey, I'm always amazed at how it comes down to the fundamentals, and yet everybody wants bright, shiny new objects, but it's the fundamentals that make a solid, awesome real estate investor and a solid, awesome real estate investing business. So you're doing your first deal. I feel like we should recount somewhat of that because that was a particularly legendary closing. Do you remember the call you got that morning from the settlement company?
Yeah, so the seller was arrested by the buyer 3 or 4 months previously for back child support.
Uh-huh.
And, I was worried. I had all my $500 credit cards. I had all the money I saved up in the military, like 20-some thousand or 30,000 in the deal. What if it fell through?
Yeah.
I didn't have title to the house. I just had the rights for the division of proceeds and for sale to go through. But thankfully, they found it funny and it all worked out. But when you have the seller and the buyer at the same table and buyer put the seller in handcuffs 3 or 4 months before, you never know.
Yeah, it was. Well, look, I mean, the state trooper definitely kept a high degree of professionalism, which I suppose was expected. I'll never forget the look on because I was at that settlement with you. I'll never forget the look on the seller's face when he was kind of looking across the table at the buyer, at the cop, and he had this weird chuckle, and the cop just coolly looked back at him and said, "What's the matter? Don't recognize me out of uniform?" I think his answer was, I don't recognize you sober.
It was interesting. I'll say something. A couple years later, 5 or 6 years later, I ran into that police officer, and thank God I only did my own work to the first 2 homes. After that, I hired people, looked at them professionally, have a very good reputation for high-end work. But the police officer was telling me how I redid the plumbing and flooring and everything I did. I was like, well, there's a reason I don't do my own work today.
Well, that's honest stuff. Yeah. Look, now that's an interesting thing to think about as well, because I remember one time you asked me to go out to the property and look at it with you, and I showed up and looked around and you weren't there. And you were over at the garage. There was an old cinder block garage, and you were taking it down single-handedly with a sledgehammer.
I don't think I could do that today. I'd like to think I could.
Still strong as an ox.
I was in that great military shape, and I don't think people in my office would believe today if I told them I took down like a 30 by 20-foot block garage by hand. But
I shook my head and said, "Why are you taking out a garage with a sledgehammer all alone?" You said, "Because everybody you had hired to help you left and quit that morning."
It would have been too hard for them.
Of course.
I did, though. I did take that down.
You took it all down by yourself, and you definitely by yourself, because you pointed at an extra sledgehammer and said, "Hey, Tom, there's a sledgehammer." And I said, "Yes,
I think you quietly said no.
Yeah, well, I just said, "Yes, that is a sledgehammer, but I'm not going to be picking it up." You're going to learn your lesson.
The hardest part, I remember, wasn't even taking it down. It was like putting everything in the dumpster.
Well, sure. Yeah, once you smash all the
actually pick it up at that point. Before that, you just get the sledgehammer.
You did a lot of work. I would say you sweated for every penny on that deal. And now you've learned to avoid the temptation to do the work yourself. Was there a shift that occurred other than the practicality of it all, Mikey?
Yeah, I started realizing a long time ago that if you do everything yourself, you only get so far and you only have so much quality of life.
Yeah.
Recently, in recent years, I've worn a couple hats again, but, I realize that it's good to do what you're best at. I know I'm really good at I'm probably 150% visionary. And as your business grows, you got to look at your skills. And if, even if you're an operations guy, you're going to go a lot further with a visionary, and a visionary is going to go a lot farther with an operations guy. And I think the ultimate goal is quality of life for you and your employees, a good retirement, and which, obviously real estate's done is going to do quite well. And, knowing your why. Your why is for time. So at first you got to put a lot of time in, but you want to definitely get your business to a point where it can self-operate and you can attract high-level folks.
Gotcha. Now I want to unpack a little bit of what you said.
It's a lot different than it was when I first started. It's probably a lot more been a lot of folks looking to do real estate or even thinking about today. It's probably, it's a 15-year down the road thing for sure.
Gotcha. Definitely. All right. So there's time to build, but I think you said something that's important, and it was not necessarily about, you can use it in partnerships, but even hiring people. You're talking about bringing on a balance in the team. So whatever your team is, whether it's employees or equal business partners, you have to have balanced strengths. Because if you bring on someone who's just like you, now you have the same strengths, but you also have the same weaknesses. So double strength, double weakness doesn't tend to work out. You're talking about bringing balance into the team.
Well, it's really a marriage. I'm at a different level than most folks. I don't want to call it, accidental, but, right now I have some very unique relationships to grow with very unique people around the world. And I have a very unique skill set of being able to structure, as a lot of people in CG would say, deals that other guys can't structure just by looking at them in 5 minutes, knowing the best way to go about it. And it's kind of like a gift. So I want to go to where my talents are fun and where I can create the most value. I've spent 5% of my time on that, but I've been able to do amazing deals on apartment complexes, with other real estate professionals, et cetera. So as you grow, which isn't really something you're thinking about, this is far off in the future, I realized 4 years ago in the Collective Genius Mastermind that, hey, I needed a good COO. Now I've had some iterations. A COO is a marriage. So it's hard to find the right person, and it doesn't always work out. But just as I've done when I started real estate, I don't give up. I keep going until I don't get deterred no matter how many bumps in the head I get, which is for people just beginning. Whether you win or lose on your first deal, you've lost if you haven't done your second.
Yep.
You win if you do your second. So, now I think we've been able to find the right fit for that role. And, it's you have to be willing to hand everything over. But I think we have a bright future in the company. And I think the future would say probably after about a year from now, I don't have to be here. I can do what matters. And if I want to not work 15 weeks a year, I can do that. But it took a long time to get there.
Gotcha.
And not everybody wants to make those sacrifices,
No, everyone's got different goals and is going to build a business that fits them and their goals.
If you're in a one-bedroom apartment, you wholesale 5 houses a year, rehab a couple, you're going to retire pretty nice.
Yeah.
It's all what you want to do, I'm at 37 years old, spending time with my son and my family, especially, my dad's not in the best health, has become a top priority. But also, when I got a call to buy a 50,000-foot office building, and I hadn't done a deal over 5,000 square feet, and very few of those, I did it because I made a really good deal. I took initiative a lot, and when everybody said I couldn't, it would take 10 years to fill and you'd only get other downtown tenants. I knocked on doors in other city over, got everybody to open up second locations, and got all new people in a school board lease and hospice downtown. I filled up a building really quick. The point of this is nobody can tell you what you can or can't do. What people can do is give you the ability to do. It's up to you what you do. Yeah. And I know I keep going back to this because Tom's explained to me this podcast is geared towards people that want to get into real estate. So I think it's important to know that you can do anything you set your mind to if you do it. Yeah. And if you spend, whatever it is on a mentor before, it can be very expensive. I've spent $140,000 to be part of a mastermind. I've spent $50,000 plus on real estate courses. But no matter what it is, you got to look at it. What did you actually do? Where are you at now? Where do you want to be? And what are you willing to do today? And when you ask yourself that, if you're willing to put in the effort, if you're willing to, not only do what told you to do, but go above and beyond, I really feel in my heart of hearts, you're gonna be successful and you're gonna get the dreams you wish.
I think that makes a lot of sense, Mikey. So if you look back over last almost 2 decades, what would you have done different? Something go wrong? I mean, what
if I could go back 2 decades,
Mikey of today tell the Mikey of
where do I begin? Okay, so my farm deal I netted 1.187 million in equity. Okay. Well, this was in 2006, and I got an offer to pretty much sell everything at $1 million of that equity. I didn't do it. The equity I had left, I did a stated income deal on the farmhouse, paid off $300,000 in real estate losses. Started after paying the farmer, started the new market, owing $600,000 on a house. It went down to $200,000 and about $30,000 again. The farm deal, when I started it to subdivide it, I thought it would take me 4 months. It took me 17. I thought it would take me 2,000. It took me 70. Money I made along the way made that happen. Most people, when they saw it was going to cost more and they didn't have the money, would have backed away. But money I made along the way made that happen. And the deal was still a win. I was able to take the equity, pay off all my losses. Did I short sale my home or modify it when the market dropped? No, because they said I had to miss a mortgage payment. My credit's too important. And I paid interest-only arm loan, embarrassingly enough, because I could have handled it a lot sooner, probably 9 years, and didn't pay down any equity. Then about 7 or 8 years ago, I got in a suit, and it became a story at BB&T. I drove down in a car I never posted because I'm not much of a bragger about stuff like this. Never put it on social media. My Jaguar F-Type R, fully loaded. Double parked out front of BB&T, walked in with a suit and a briefcase, memorized the top 3 people's name on the way down, asked for them by name. Mm-hmm. They believed that I was there to meet them so much. They got all their offices on the phone. Security escorted me out 20 minutes later. What's the point of this? The head of security for BB&T called me the very next day and asked me what that was about. I told him. Within 24 hours, I got an agreement in the mail for a 20-year interest and principal mortgage at 3.75%. So what did I do that was different? I took initiative. I said,
it's a little weird, but yes, it was different.
People. So to make a long story short, about 3 years ago, I was working with BB&T on the professional arts building loan at the building house at the Chamber of Commerce. Very iconic building, best example of an Art Deco building outside Baltimore. It's attached to Barbara Ingram School, the #1 art school. And I told the president of BB&T the story. He was able to talk to the head people. Sure enough, they remembered it, and they found it hilarious, and actually wanted to see me when they came to town. They remembered when the young guy showed up and asked for him by name. Actually, the president of all of BB&T Bank, the local market president, told about this and remembered when I came in because they actually got a hold of him about it. Because I went in there and said, "Hey, I'm here to meet with this guy. Does he know you have a meeting?" "Well, I think so."
No, he's never heard of me. I'm way too young.
Yeah, so it really worked out well. So the whole point of that is sometimes you got to punch through barriers. And sometimes barriers in your life are time. Sometimes barriers in your life are money.
Yep.
But if you have a good real estate deal, the money's always going to be there. If you have a dream and you take initiative, action's always going to happen.
You'll make it happen.
I definitely think it's a good thing.
You know, Mikey, you bring up your age in that story, your lack of age back then, and you're not even that old now. So let's talk about age for a minute, because age is one of those big old excuses that everyone likes to use. Most of the time, I hear that I'm too old. I wish I would have started sooner. Everyone has that regress. I should have started sooner. If only I had started sooner. I am going to say this, and I will go on record. When I met you and you were 20 years old, one of your first gripes to me was, "Tom, I wish I would have started sooner." And I said, gosh, Mikey, any sooner, and you wouldn't have been legally old enough to sign your own contracts. Mommy and Daddy would have had to do it for you. And yeah, and they would have, because you could have come in. So look, most people are worried about being too old to start in on anything. In your case, you were very young. Some people would argue too young. So how do you think age plays into it all at the end of the day?
I think age, if I could go back in time and I knew this when I was 10 years old, I would have done it at 10 years old and hired someone 18. But, I don't think there's any age. I once met a mailman that was 78 years old that bought his first deal. Okay. So I don't think there's any age really to start. I think there's no time like the present. And I think you're giving up on yourself if you think you're too old or too young.
Yep, I totally agree. I think it's one of the biggest BS excuses people tell themselves. The other giant excuse that you can help address as well is Tom, there's no deals out there. There's no deals in this market. This market's too hot. This market's too cold. This market's too stable. This market's too unstable. This market's too whatever.
I've done real estate a long time. I did it in 05, 06, 07.
Yep.
I did it in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. One thing I can tell you is there's always a deal in any market. And anybody tells you there isn't is wrong. Now, sometimes it's the type of deal you're doing, but there's always deals. And there's always deals on all levels.
Well, how can you say that with so much confidence?
Because I've done deals on all levels in every type of market.
And
I've seen people do deals on all levels in any type of market.
Okay.
I'm not the only one of, there's definitely a lot of people out there with success in all ranges of markets. Sometimes I'd say a bad market is an easier way to get a deal, but I'd say a good market is a better way to sell a deal for more.
Yes.
And I'd say everything averages out.
Don't you ever hit a dry spot or a dry spell, a down cycle?
No.
What do you do to keep consistent?
I advertise consistently. So, consistent advertising, we do now. We're at our general advertising when we advertise normally, we're a little bit slowed down right now. We are focused on some of our existing assets because we have a lot of juice in the orange. We need to fill out some positions, but a lot of juice that hasn't been squeezed out.
Mm-hmm.
And, but generally we now, my advertising budget used to be $100 a month.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, I don't think I spent anything. I did Craigslist.
Yeah.
But in recent years, this may sound, for anybody just beginning, this may sound like a lot. But my advertising budget, I spend $25,000 to $30,000 a month consistently for the last 5 years. We just slowed that down over the last 4 or 5 months while we were working on some assets.
I don't want that number to scare anyone and you prefaced it.
But you don't need that number.
You don't need to be spending 25 grand a year.
Here's the thing. We could spend half that number and get twice as many deals. The reason we spend that number is because we're at the point where we can get the low-hanging fruit and consistency and bigger deals by spending that number. We know if we spend that number, we can pretty easily take down 10 deals a month. I also know that when I was spending $1,000 a month, I could take down a deal. It's what you're going to do with the phone call, what you're going to do with the lead. And sometimes your market, you don't get any calls. It's all in the marketing. I'd say if you have no money and you're just starting out, a really, really good way to get a deal is to cold call. You'd be surprised. You could cold call out-of-state landlords and have extremely high efficiency, extremely high. But do I have the time to do that?
No.
If I did have the time, could I get 10 deals off no money? The answer is, knowing what I know today, the answer is absolutely yes. I could get 10 deals off no money if I focused 40 hours a week on certain sets of phone calls.
Gotcha.
And that's only from my experience. What I realized at first, when it took 3 months to get my first deal, no. But what happened over years? I got more and more honed in where it became easier and easier. Now I'd have everything else fall apart, so I don't have that option, unless I want to downsize. And I don't, we're about to hire an all-star COO, Wall Street style COO that I'm very happy with. And we're probably going to be hiring 10 more positions here soon. So in my normal business, no, if I can throw a big net out there and I can get the low-hanging fruit, and I can be consistent at 10 deals a month. Now, where do you wholesale, Mike? Well, even though I only go down there once or twice a year, I do very, very well in New Orleans. Okay. I also do Maryland, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. I tried 5 virtual markets. New Orleans is the one I like the most. So you can wholesale anywhere. You don't have to be there to wholesale.
Don't have to be there to do it.
You can. There's a service called We Go Look almost anywhere in the country, and there's this service called DocuSign and the internet.
Yep. So
it's amazing what you can do sitting behind your computer. I know one guy that coaches Israelis, actually a mutual friend of mine and Tom's, and he has these Israelis doing hundreds of deals from Israel, calling on American numbers. So you can literally, it's amazing what it can become, but it's never going to get there unless you start looking for a deal today. And it takes a couple months. It takes a couple months working with the local mentor.
Location doesn't matter. And budget-wise, like you say, the cold calling costs you nothing. So it's not that you need to be spending 25, 30 grand a year. That's when you get up to Mikey's level.
A month.
Get up to an advanced investor. A month. Yeah, 25, 30 grand a month is where you're at. You could be spending zero a month and be bringing in enough deals to have a
I was spending zero a month. Most of my first, even my third year real estate advertising budget was $500 a month.
Yep.
Now, I will say this. I got some friends in Phoenix and California. They're spending $500,000 a month marketing. but they've averaged 2.4 million net this year over the marketing.
Sure.
So they're bringing in about 3.
Yeah.
So it's all relative.
It's all relative. So what we're saying is if you're beginner, intermediate, advanced, you'll have a budget that'll match what your personal goals are, what lifestyle you're trying to achieve. Like personally, Mike, I look and go, I would never want to spend $25,000, $30,000 a month on marketing because I don't have any desire to do that many deals a month. But that's a lifestyle choice. That's what fits me. You feel differently about it, obviously. And I'm sure every one of our listeners feels different as well because you have as many different attitudes and desires as you do different people.
Well, and things change. We went 90% rehabbing to where we're 90% wholesaling, one major project and a handful of rehabs a year.
Yeah.
Things change over time.
Yes.
I gave everybody a good tip, cold call. Tom has a good list. You'll get deals. You don't need money to do deals in real estate. You need effort. And
effort. Yeah, that's a lot of effort is work, and work is basically a 4-letter word these days, Mike.
I still put in 100-hour weeks to get to where I'm at. I'm just now getting to the point where, the future looks like I can slow down. Could I have been at that point 5 years ago? Absolutely. But sometimes you don't see the forest through the trees. You see the trees once you start moving through the forest.
That's the way you are. You're like an energizer bunny. You go, go, go. I think people could tell by the way you talk, right? You go, 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 go. But there's a part of real estate that fits everybody, fits every personality. You have to find what it is for you. So there's people that go, I would never want rentals, or I would never want a wholesale, or I would never want to.
I think anybody starting out that doesn't have $500,000 in the bank, which I didn't, I barely had any money. Should I say wholesale, build your capital, then look to create wealth and look to create smart wealth. And remember, just because you own a rental property doesn't mean you're not going to have to put money into it.
Correct.
What it means is you're developing long-term wealth that every month is paying itself down. You're getting appreciation in most cases, and you're getting depreciation. So, I'm a big believer in long-term wealth, but there were years along the way I had to put money into my rentals.
Yeah.
It takes organization and systems. Tom, you asked me a question earlier I didn't really answer. What would I have done differently? It would be easy to say I could have bought the 20 homes in Annapolis I was offered in a recession for $60,000 a piece that are now worth $700,000. It would be easy to say when guys wanted me to pick up some properties in Phoenix, I should have because they 20x. It would be easy to say when banks brought me this deal or that deal, 12 townhomes and 38 finished townhome lots and 38 unfinished townhome lots for $1 million. I should have bought it at 10x. So what I would have done different, I can't really say I would have had hindsight because that's impossible. What I would have done different is I would have slowed down. I caused a lot of stress and didn't grow any bigger than I needed to by when I decided I wanted to pick up 100 rental units. Once banks started working with me and I was going to go to 10 different banks and do it before they could blink. And I said I was going to do it by the age of 29. I was 27. By the age of 29, I had over 200 rental units. What did I learn from that? A lot of stress, a lot of unneeded stress. And could I have done the same thing smarter? Yes. Don't be in a rush to be the biggest. Don't be in a rush to do the most. Say, hey, here's where I'm at today. I can replace my income for $50,000 a year. What does that look like? That looks like 1, 2, 3 wholesales. DC probably 1. Look at where you want to be at, grow from there. Take your time getting there. Don't do more than you can handle. And as you're doing stuff, think about the time commitment it takes to handle that.
Yeah.
Me, I never really thought about that. I've had 7-day work weeks at different times, but I'm extremely grateful and blessed to meet people around the world I've met some pretty interesting people. Actually, my roommate right now, a good friend of mine, because he lives in Florida, but he's up here a week a month and during football season, is Santana Moss. Who would have known I'd be buddies with Santana Moss? Or who would have known I'd have the relationships around the world I have? It all just happened. It came along the way, I meet people. I'm not afraid to talk to people. If you are afraid to talk to people, you can still do good. You can do email.
I've never seen you afraid to talk to anybody.
I'm what they call the opposite of an introvert. I like to say a joke. I'm kind of an introvert, but I'm the extrovert.
Yeah, you're the most extroverted introvert I know. Literally, when you've had me up to work on your office systems and look at your business and talk and catch up and talk, and we go out to eat, and I'm being walked to the table to sit down. You're talking to the other hostess about a house that's for sale, or and then you come back and go, Tom, well, her and her husband just split up, and neither one of them could afford the house, and now I'm going to do that deal with the hostess at the restaurant. It's always amusing what you dig up because you're not afraid to talk to anyone, Mikey.
No, I'm not afraid to talk to anyone. Actually, when I first started, I used to tell everybody what I did. I'd be in the line at Borders, a bookstore, but it's no longer here. And I talked to the 4 or 5 people behind me in line and asked them to refer me real estate deals. It's something you can definitely get over. So actually, I've only coached myself, really 3 people in real estate, and I don't coach. It's not something I'm looking to do at all. I give people my Instagram. I like being followed, seeing what people are doing. But as far as coaching, it's not something I'm willing to do right now. But I coached Kong with Wholesale to Millions. He has 3 million TikTok followers. And he was actually, you see him on his social media and you feel like, man, he must be a natural. I can tell you. That's something he had to get over. I'm extremely proud of him. And now he'll go up and talk to, anybody, but he certainly started out as quite the opposite. And so what I'm trying to say is you always have room to self-grow. When I used to meet with attorneys, when I first started, my palms used to sweat. When I started real estate, I get nervous in big meetings. Now I can be in front of 800 people up on stage and give a speech with not a hinge of nervousness.
You learn to crawl before you learn to walk, and you might fall down, but it's all right. It's not that scary. Get back up and keep going.
Pick yourself back up.
Yeah, every single time. Michael Fitzgerald, that's incredible. So now you are prince or king of your hometown, the county. Everyone wants you to do more development work.
I'm just somebody that cares about the community.
I got it, which is fantastic. I saw something on a video of you that was, they said they were treating you like the favorite son of the town. Because they said, we just believe in you so much because we've never seen anyone so excited about our town.
So I don't post this stuff. Yeah. I don't post most of my newspaper articles just because I've been able to create relationships with high enough level people around the world where I'm very careful about what I post. But, I've proven 2 times when people thought I would fail. I did 2 city partnerships where, 150,000 was contributed on the first one, 600,000 in dollar for dollar or cash equivalent, and cash was contributed on the second one, and that's given me the ability to do the third one. A senator and I were recently on the phone with the state on a Zoom meeting, and the senator said, every time I've doubted Mike Fitzgerald, I've been wrong. When he says he's going to do it no matter what. And, that's been my attitude. I got there by proving myself and living up to my commitments, no matter how bad. I had a high-end condo project that looked like a dream deal, but I lost money on it. I finished it. I didn't bankrupt the LLC. I did what I was supposed to do. So I believe in life. If you have integrity, you do what you're supposed to do. You follow through no matter what. No matter how hard you have to work, you live up to your commitments. You're going to get very far in life.
I think that's fantastic advice overall for any level that you're at, beginner, intermediate, advanced, everything in between. You be a man or woman of your word. Stick to what you say, do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, because that builds a reputation, which builds people's trust in you, and the more and more starts to flow your way naturally.
I agree.
Awesome. Mikey, fantastic. Great catching up with you. Thank you for your candor. Thanks for all your great tips. This is another podcast episode that needs to be listened to a few times to really absorb everything that's been said and think about how to apply it into your own life, guys.
Well, I hold you and your family dearly. I know what a good father you are. I know your wife's awesome. You're awesome. I know you genuinely care about people. And I turned down more podcasts than I'm on. And that's truth. I turned down 2 this week. And I've been on about a half dozen. I've been offered to be on 60. I'm on Tom's podcast because I know he's a good guy. I know that he cares about people. And I know if you genuinely want to get started and you're genuinely going to take action, that he can give you the start you really need. A lot of it is having the belief and without the division of proceeds agreement that I did with Tom, it would have been hard to do my first deal. And, I can say stick with it. And really think about a mentor no matter where you're at. If you're serious, if you're not serious and you're not ready to move forward, then this is something you shouldn't do. But if you're serious, you want to change your life, you want to get into real estate wholesaling, when you make a commitment, writing a check does nothing. Having a mentor does nothing. Listening to what a mentor said and taking action does everything. So if you're willing to do that in your heart of hearts, then it's the right decision in my mind.
No, it's fantastic, Mikey. And I'm glad, one of the reasons I don't I don't use that specific contract you mentioned as often, but I've kept it in my kit because of you, because I know how well it's done for you over the years.
So it's not something I've done it over years. In the beginning, it helped because like 15 of my first 17 deals were no money down. But that's actually got very popular today with houses that have some equity, but not enough to wholesale it. And some of the biggest investors in the country are doing that 100 times a year. They call it different. They don't call it a division of proceeds, but it's the same concept.
That's what my attorney, that's how we wrote it up at the time. So, no,
I've come up with fancier names for it, like Novation.
I don't like fancy names. I like names that at least can make sense. Division of proceeds. It is what it says, and it does what it says. So I'm glad that you're able to lean back on some of your initial training, even 17 years later and hundreds of deals later and gazillions of dollars later. It's nice that you still, a foundation is doing what a foundation is supposed to do, and that's keep everything stable so you can build as much as you want on top of it.
The biggest thing with a mentor, the biggest thing it did for me was it keeps you moving, doing what you're supposed to do and getting things done. And I'd say division of proceeds, absolutely right. I still look to use that today in situations where it makes sense. But having someone there to hold you accountable and to give you the tools and actually using the tools will put you where you want to be.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Mikey, one thing you don't know is that when you send me your newspaper clippings and whatnot, and there's you in front of a new building that you built or that you're rebuilding, and a building in your downtown that you're repositioning and revitalizing and bringing life back into it. A lot of times I've shared those with my own mother. And my mother said to me one day, she goes, man, you coached that kid years ago. He's done really, really well. Like,
I gotta send you some more. If you go online and you put Michael Fitzgerald, Hagerstown, Maryland.
Yep.
Developer real estate, the first 4 pages have a ton of stuff.
Well, I don't want to overwhelm my mother. I'll pick them out one by one and send them over to you.
But I would have never
proud of you, Mikey. My mother's proud of you. We're all proud of you.
I would have never thought that in the beginning. Yeah, definitely. I have nothing special. I just do it. Awesome. Everybody has something they're strong at. Look to exploit your strengths. To some people, it's going to be different than my strengths. Everybody's different.
Yep. Yeah, fantastic. Michael Fitzgerald, also known as Mikey. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Mike to the Fitz on Instagram. That's Mike, M-I-K-E.
Yep.
Number 2, the T-H-E, Fitz, F-I-T-Z on Instagram.
Mike to the Fitz.
Yes.
All right, at Instagram. Awesome, guys. Fantastic, Michael. We'll talk to you again very soon. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Your next step is to visit gettractionpodcast.com. Happy wholesaling.